In-person networking can be a little confusing. Lunch and learns and other typical networking events may not produce the results you're looking for, leaving you confused and dejected. In this week's Hot Seat episode, Miles has a small social media following, so he's been focusing on in-person networking events. They haven't proven to be as fruitful as he'd hoped and is feeling a little bit lost. Jonathan helps Miles identify what makes him unique and how to tap into that to land right in front of his ideal clients more easily and consistently. I'll be back at the end to recommend another episode. Enjoy.
Miles, go for it, dude.
Hey man. Yeah, so I brought up the in-person network because I think the last time I was on one of these calls, you've pushed that on, like, you told me that's like a good, especially at my following. I don't have like a huge following to lean into that. And I know, your podcast, all your content, that's a thing you've been talking about a lot. So I've been trying to do more of that. I've, been going to networking events. I've, been asking my clients. I'm trying to do lunch and learns. I haven't exactly gone heavy on that. So, but I don't know. I just get ideas from like other coaches. Like I know Luca is huge into that. I don't know if that's like the best use of my time, but it's an option. So I'm kind of scattered in that way.
Right.
So I'm not exactly sure where to start.
Ashley, talk about what you brought up last time on one of these calls.
About meeting people at
The
bookstore.
book talk. The book talk. You can choose to describe what book talk is or isn't if you want.
I mean, doesn't everybody know what book talk
I
is?
had no idea what it was. I had to Google it and I regretted Googling it.
It's the place of TikTok where all the spicy book people live. Anyway, it's very niched, but Miles, I have found just going to like local bookstores and cafes and places where the people that I want to coach hang out, like the places where the weird people like me are. And just talking to them, talking to the business owners. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to local bookstores and kind of setting up networks there to then bring them onto social media and nurture and sell from social media there.
Yeah, which I love. I love a couple parts of that. Number one is you're going out and you're making it happen. Like you're not depending on anybody else happening. But what you're doing is you're using social media not as a discovery mechanism. You're using it more as a nurture mechanism, as a collecting place, which I actually think for the majority of people doing business the way that we do business, basically anybody who's not trying to be famous on the internet, but trying to leverage social media to build a business, I actually think that that is a much more efficient, straightforward, easier and fast acting approach. I think that social media is a phenomenal job, or is a phenomenal place to bring like-minded people together and perhaps attract other people via that platform into your community. That will naturally happen, but not depending on it for that. Instead, finding people who are like-minded around probably, some geeky obsession outside and bringing them there. And using that as a place to nurture them and communicate and build a community. And I mean, even just like organize events and whatever. And that doesn't even need to be social media. That could be a WhatsApp group. I mean, I give the example in the Obvious Choice book of, I call her Janet. It's not a real name, but her entire training business. Now, she's not an online trainer, but her entire training business is training older women, like retired women, grandmothers, that she met. She originally met them going to a bridge game. And in the most unsurprising turn of events ever, she was the youngest person there. And she built a community of these women from this bridge game, and her entire community is a single WhatsApp group. She has no email, she has nothing else, and they all pay her in cash. And so it could be like a WhatsApp group, it could be a Telegram channel. Like it doesn't have to be Instagram. It doesn't have to be a Facebook group. It's whatever is most natural to that community. With these women, WhatsApp works great because all of these women are communicating to their kids who don't live around there through WhatsApp. So they're already on WhatsApp. So that's why it works for them. But the idea, I think, starts, Miles. I mean, Lunch and Learn's fine. Like, whatever. To me, it's just not interesting. I think they can work. There's a friend of mine, his name's Igor Klebanov, runs a big remote training business in Toronto, a bunch of trainers working for him. And he speaks at companies. And he does like 50 talks a year at different companies. And he'll do like lunch talks and stuff like that. And he's built a really, really good system for 5 or 6 different talks on different things. He's built a community of HR people at these companies. He knows exactly how to generate leads. He knows exactly how to make an offer from these talks because he's done it for like a decade. This is the entire way that he builds his business. And he's all in on this. And so it can work, but it doesn't work if you just do them every so often. It only works if you're like what Igor does. And he's just like, this is basically how he builds his business. And then he has trainers that he sends around when they get hired. But I think the more straightforward approach and the more fun approach, to be honest, is to do something like what Ashley is doing. You know, people hire trainers because of the 1% that makes them different, not the 99% that makes them the same. Bro, who gives a shit if you can talk about reducing your odds of diabetes to Hewlett Packard's, Mississauga division? Like, how many people could give that 45-minute talk if they wanted to? And so why would anybody choose you? Just because you happen to be there and they happen to be wanting to hire somebody? That could work. Again, that does work if that's your business model and you become really, really good at that. Or you could appeal to people based off of the 1% that makes you different. Like the book talk communities. And then in doing that, you go out and you build the community around that thing. I give the example in the book. This is a thought experiment, but I give the example in the book. I'm like, if I owned a flower shop, I would create a series of categorical awards for the best gardens within 20 miles of my home. And then I would go to I would host a yearly award gala, and I would get other companies. I would have a gala. I would get other companies to sponsor the gala and whatever, because everybody wants to be part of an event if there's an actual event going on. And I would go and I would literally just give awards to people who have the best gardens. And I would give them signs to put on their thing that they won the awards. And it would say my flower shop, because people who have great gardens buy flowers, and people who don't have great gardens probably don't buy flowers. And from that, you could organize things like a community garden or neighborhood cleanups or whatever. The point is, for people who are into that thing, you would be the center of that community. But this has got to be the type of thing that you're kind of all in on. It's pretty hard to do otherwise. So let me ask you, what's outside of lifting stuff up and putting it down, give or take 8 to 10 times, and losing count at about 6?
Well, up until, let's say, 6 months ago, I was very much involved in the Latin dance community here in Toronto. And I was just doing that for fun. I wasn't even doing that for business or anything like that. But I have gotten clients from that community. But I stopped doing that just because I wanted to go all in. Like, I just wanted to focus on business right now. But in the back of my mind, it's like I'm thinking, hey, I missed this thing. but I also have a community. So I was thinking maybe I could hit two birds with one stone.
So how would you do it? How would you tackle that?
Well, if I can start going back to these, like I was taking classes, I was very deep in this community,
Mm-hmm.
and I was getting them into my network, like on social media. So you're saying like nurturing, like they get to see my stuff that I'm doing, and then they get interested in that and have conversations from there.
Yeah, I mean, do you so you're not participating now? What were you doing, call it a year ago, to participate in that world?
Like I was doing classes, I was traveling, I was a performer.
Yeah. So you've got a pretty good network.
Yeah,
And in Toronto, you've got a pretty good network.
yeah.
Where do people go? Um, I mean, is it mostly classes? I know there's different nights at different clubs and things like that. Like, where do people go? This is a world that I don't know much about, so educate me a little bit. Like, where do people hang out that are interested in this?
There's a lot of classes. There's a lot of studios around the city scattered around. There's these socials where people on like a Friday or like a Sunday night, they'll go out, just practice their moves, dance.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
then, you know, a couple times a year, like there's the huge festivals and, you know, people gather around. It's a huge community.
It's a huge community. We had a student before, Joe Messina, who was
Yeah.
super involved. You know Joe, yeah.
Yeah.
He built a really good, nice business out of that. And it actually started with that. It was he was a performer, him and his wife. I think before it was his wife, but now his wife. And it was basically like getting women just like looking and feeling rocking that were dancing. And that was his original. I can't remember. They even had like a name of their group
Hmm.
um, that he did. If it's something that you miss, that's a good sign. I mean, I have this with baseball cards. I missed it and something kind of reignited it. And I decided to get involved in a business with it. And it's been interesting the people who I've connected with around baseball cards that have become really, really important connections for me outside of the fitness industry. But, you know, folks who I meet up with professionally, and it would otherwise be a very benign professional conversation, but I'll bring something up and I'll kind of hint at it to see whether they had interest. And I'll be like, oh, yeah, and you know, I'm a part owner in a company in the baseball card space. You know, it's just like something that I do. And immediately there's like memories of their childhood or whatever. It's not always, but those people who I connect with on that, like the founder of Comic Con, like I'll text him back and forth now. And that would never have happened if we didn't connect in it because him and his brother and his family like open up packs of cards on the weekends. Like that's what they do every single weekend. I would never known that. I met him at a professional event. Right? We were talking about who knows what, um, entrepreneur stuff, whatever, boring stuff. It's surprising when I show parts of myself that I even sometimes am otherwise embarrassed about. It's surprising how many people share that or know somebody who shares that, who they make an introduction to. Is there an opportunity? Again, it's hard for me because I don't know that world at all, but is there an opportunity to be the organizer of either events or even media? You know, like some podcast devoted to Latin dancing in Toronto, for example. You're not going to get a lot of listeners, but what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to interview the studio owners and profile them, and they're going to send it out to their studio. And by the way, the podcast is sponsored by your training company, which is the I don't know, the Sexy Dancer Fitness Academy. Better name than that. That name sucks, but like something like that. You know what I'm saying? And then this podcast is by you, and there's an advertisement in there. Like, if that's your thing, and you really miss it, and you love that community, and you love just geeking out about it. Like if it's the type of thing that you could have the same conversation multiple times a week with different people and not get bored, talk about the same move, talk about foot placement, technique, whatever. I think you probably attack it and mix those. And I mean, you will find that, yeah, people will come to you because you're like a dance guy, but like the training won't be about that. Like, that. It's like when a guy came to me wanting to get his PGA tour card, a golfer. This is years back. And he got his tour card, and like most people who get their tour card, I mean, they don't really go anywhere, and you don't make any money unless you're like top 50. So he played on the tour in and out for a couple years. But like beyond the initial 12 weeks, it was a training client like any training client. But the reason that it came to me is literally because I put up a poster and started promoting myself as a golf fitness expert. No, I did the work. At that point, I read every study on PubMed about golf fitness. There's a lot more now. This was 2008, but why people come to you is going to be different than, the ongoing training.
Yeah, it's like you're able to stick out more in the sea of, all these online coaches. That's the 1% thing that makes you stick out. So, and I definitely know that this podcast, like this idea, does not exist out there yet. So something to that effect is what I'm getting.
I mean, a podcast, I love awards. I think awards are a really underutilized marketing asset because you can just make this shit up. Like you can just make up any award for anything ever. And no matter what you do and give somebody, they're going to be so proud of it and show it off.
So it's
You could just get like I don't know. I mean, I created an award years ago that I gave away on my blog for a couple years that I called the Jug, which was the John Award for recognizing greatness, that I literally gave away to people who recognized I was great. Like I just gave it to people who profiled me because I wanted more people to profile me. And so then they just profiled me again because I gave them an award. Like it's like dumb stuff. I mean, this was pure idiocy.
like this thing.
Right. Like, a little stupid like dollar bill with me pointing at you. Which that picture actually has another funny story associated to it. That's kind of an inner joke in our company, which is why we keep using it. But tell you that when we meet up. But this series of, I mean, dude, organize like the Latin Dancing Business Awards. Started at night, get the gym that you work at, like rent the space from them or ask them to use the space. And it'll grow from there. But I think that there's a lot more that we can do to be creative. I mean, I think a podcast is wonderful. And I think a podcast as a networking tool is seriously underutilized. Because how else, if you were to call up the owner there's a lot of dancing studios in Toronto. I see them all. I don't see them all. I see them. But how else could you easily contact the owner and be like, I want to interview you? Or I want an hour of your time basically to get to know you and be friends with you. So that way you refer me all of your clients for fitness. If you feature them on a podcast about leaders in the Latin dancing community. And then the same type of thing. You ask them about the physiotherapists that they refer their people to if they have any injuries, and then you profile the physiotherapist that works with a lot of dancers that are rehabbing injuries. And then you become the referred source for that physiotherapist. The same thing with chiro. Like you just see how this starts to spiral. What are charities associated with this? Anytime that you see any kind of an event that a charity supports it, get the person involved in the charity because they're probably well connected in that world too. And profile them, and it's largely a networking tool, but then you just give them the sources to show that to their people. And again, you're not going to get a lot of listens. It's going to play on your mind because you're not going to get a lot of downloads. You're not going to get a lot of listens, but like, this is why, like, I have no idea how many downloads there are. I have no idea how many people listen to the Obvious Choice podcast. I've never looked at the numbers once. It's completely irrelevant to me.
It's a
Because
long game play.
well, the goal is very different than just abstract listens. It's very specifically for a certain type of person. And so is it driving business? Yes. So it's doing what it needs to do. Are we having fun? Does it help me explore and build, write better books and explore ideas? 100%. If I was in your shoes, is it helping me build the best network on the planet of leaders in the Latin dance community? Holy shit, man. Like, think about, obviously there's the, think about all of the different people, right? You have the owners of the studios, you have the organizers of the events, you of course have the top competitors. But then you have the physios, the chiros, the masseuses that you can easily get introduced to. And they can talk about common treatments, what Latin did. And then all of this, what all of this is doing is giving you the best Rolodex and making you the obvious choice to be referred whenever any of these people need fitness. And you can say to them straight up, like, look, I've got this coaching service. I help dancers get into the best shape of their lives, both to dance better and also to avoid injury and to look better and have more energy for their family. Like straight up, if you know anybody, like, please send them my way. And perhaps there is a gathering place or a community for that. You could invite them to like a Telegram channel or something, or a WhatsApp group. And then I love the awards thing. So, I mean, I would probably start locally just because those are the people you know. But I think in a world like that, it's got to be so insular. Like, you got to see the same people at the competitions and
It is. It's the same people, studios, and the same people at the top here.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you could do that for any niche. I mean, Greg's doing that for surfers because it's kind of similar. I mean, it's similar in that they're all over the place, but it's also similar in that, you know, the people who are into it are really into it. It's different in that surfing is kind of by definition in like remote parts of the world, like very far away from one another. And they even often don't tell people where they're going because they don't want people there. So maybe it's a little bit different that way. But what he's done that's been really great is, yes, of course, the owners of the surf resorts, but also like physiotherapist on the north of Kauai that works with surfers. Right? And it will allow you to kind of scratch both itches, which I think is something you might be needing.
It sounds way more fun than a lunch and learn.
I mean, it like, I don't know. I don't need to shit on lunch and learns, but I'm gonna shit on lunch and learns. Like, I think nobody wants to do those, man. Like, they're just not exciting. The people who are at them largely don't want to be there. I mean, it's just, and like I said, it could generate some business, but you're kind of begging people to show up versus having people say, "Oh my God, can I show up? Can I be on your podcast? Hey," I mean, the listenership that you're going to start to build is going to be small but mighty. and people connected. There's a fun little like dot matrix chart that I drew in the book that's basically like most people do business like this. You've got, I don't know how well you could see it. Can you see it? Probably not. You've got basically like 9 dots that are not connected. When you work with communities that are interconnected, what starts to happen is something like this. People know each other. And you'll start having folks in the community. I mean, you can ask him at the end of a recording with somebody, hey, you know, who else do you think could be a great fit for this? Oh, cool. Do you mind making an introduction? That's quite literally a referral. A referral is a passage of trust. Them introducing you to their friend who runs another studio or organizes said event or whatever it is them passing on their trust, referring you.
I think this is one thing that spurred my comment to your post yesterday too, was like I knew like I had to ask more people, but it's asking the right people. So this, what you talked about now just brought that to light to me. So I
So
have this community.
Here's your assignment. Can I give you an assignment?
Sure, please.
I don't know how podcasts go to space. Amber does all of that. I talk into a computer and then she makes it go to space. So, number one, figure out how to make a podcast go to space. I think it's just you talk into a computer and record it, and then it goes to Libsyn, and Libsyn like zaps it out to all the different platforms. But I don't know how that's set up. But enough people who have done that are not as smart as you that I'm sure you can figure that out in about 5 minutes. So start a podcast by the end of this week, and I want you to have your first 3 guests booked. You're going to call the podcast The Best of Latin Dance. It's a shit name, but you can change it. But all you need is a name. You're going to go on Fiverr.com and you're going to hire somebody and you're going to pay him $20 and you're going to get him to create podcast art for you. That's called The Best of Latin Dance. It's going to have a picture of you on there. It's going to have The Best of Latin Dance really front and center. And then it's going to have presented by, and it's going to be your coaching company name on that photo. You should be able to have that from Fiverr like by tomorrow.
Yeah.
Again, you can change it. It's not going to be good, but it doesn't matter because all you need to invite somebody to a podcast is literally a photo and a name of a podcast. And you're going to reach out to, you're going to book 3 guests, ideally record next week, but you're going to book 3 guests by the end of the week for an interview about what they're doing that's so special in the Latin dance community. And I'm sure you have a good network, but a studio owner, maybe some sort of health practitioner in that space, could be dancer who's good, could be even a dancer who's not very good, but just really loves it and is all in. Like, what you want from your early adopters is you want people who can't shut up about a thing. Whether they have a big audience or not yet is a lot less relevant early on, because somebody who has a big audience is not going to be the first guest on your podcast. Somebody who has a studio might be. But you can be a bit of like a talent scout in that what you're actually choosing for is you're choosing for people who are loud. You know, if you reverse engineer what you want here, it's basically word of mouth. You want people talking for you, recommending other people go and listen to this thing. So who do you know that almost to an annoying extent talks about their dancing? Whether anybody's
Um,
listening or not is almost less relevant.
I already know who these three people are. Like
Yeah.
I know exactly.
Okay. Send me a message by the end of the day Friday, and you don't need to say anything in it. Just say booked. Cool.
Cool.
Cool. That was fun. Love it. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Amber again, thanks for listening in. This episode was from a group call from Jonathan's online trainer mentorship, where we host hot seats every 2 weeks. The mentorship is where we take anyone doing from $1,000 to $20,000 a month or more and help them scale up. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in learning more about, please DM the word mentor to Jonathan on Instagram at It's Coach Goodman. If you're looking for another episode to listen to right now, I'd recommend episode 212, Get Leads by Planting Your Geek Flag. When you and your ideal clients geek out about the same thing, it's a lot easier to find, connect, and convert them into paying clients. It's even better when you can create a space for you to collectively geek out. In this episode, you'll learn about planting your geek flag so your ideal client can find you, what to do instead of partnering with other businesses, and 3 things to leverage that builds trust. Again, that's episode 212, Get Leads by Planting Your Geek Flag. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next week.